What would you do if the government told you your dream was illegal? Most people would walk away. But one African entrepreneur refused. He took his own government to court, and fought for 5 years. Not for revenge. Not for fame. But for an idea. An idea that would eventually connect millions of people across Africa. Today, that idea is worth billions. This is the story of Strive Masiyiwa, the man who refused to accept no, and went on to build Econet Wireless. And his journey proves one powerful truth. Sometimes the biggest opportunities hide behind the strongest resistance. Before the boardrooms, the global recognition, and the billion-dollar influence, there was a young boy growing up in southern Africa with very ordinary circumstances. That boy was Strive Masiyiwa. His childhood was not surrounded by luxury. Like many families across the region, his upbringing was shaped by discipline, strong values, and the daily realities of limited resources. Yet within that simple environment, something powerful was forming: curiosity. Strive was the kind of child who wanted to understand how things worked. Radios, wires, signals, machines, these fascinated him. He didn't just see devices, he wondered about the invisible systems behind them. But one of the strongest influences in his early life was his mother. She believed deeply in education. To her, knowledge was more than a pathway to employment, it was a pathway to freedom. She constantly reminded him that learning could open doors that money alone could not. Those lessons stayed with him. Eventually, Strive pursued engineering studies, determined to understand the technological systems shaping the modern world. Engineering taught him not just theory, but problem-solving, the ability to look at complex challenges and imagine practical solutions. At the time, he could not have known that one day his biggest challenge would not be technology, but systems of power. And that solving that problem would require something even stronger than intelligence. It would require courage. After completing his education, Strive Masiyiwa returned home with the mindset of an engineer, someone trained to look for problems that needed solutions. What he saw shocked him. Telecommunications in Zimbabwe were extremely limited. Telephone lines were rare, expensive, and controlled entirely by the state. For many citizens, simply getting a phone line could take years. Businesses struggled to communicate. Families remained disconnected across long distances. To most people, this was simply the way things were. But Strive saw something different. He saw a massive opportunity. Mobile technology was beginning to expand globally. In many parts of the world, wireless communication was rapidly replacing traditional telephone systems. Strive believed the same revolution could happen in Zimbabwe. His idea was simple but powerful: build a private mobile telecommunications network that could connect millions of people faster than government systems ever could. It was a bold proposal. But when he presented the idea to authorities, the response was immediate. No. Telecommunications were a government monopoly. Private companies were not allowed to operate in that space. For most entrepreneurs, that would have been the end of the story. But Strive believed something fundamental. Innovation should not be restricted by outdated systems. And he made a decision that would change his life forever. Instead of accepting the rejection, he decided to challenge the government itself. Few entrepreneurs willingly step into direct confrontation with government power. But Strive Masiyiwa believed his idea was not only legal, it was necessary. So he took an extraordinary step. He filed a lawsuit against the Zimbabwean government, arguing that the telecommunications monopoly violated constitutional rights and blocked innovation. It was a bold and risky move. The government was powerful. The legal process was slow. And the consequences of challenging authority could be severe. But Strive believed the issue went beyond his own business ambitions. He believed the country needed competition, innovation, and technological progress. The courtroom battle began. And it would last 5 long years. During that time, the pressure was enormous. Financial resources were drained by legal costs. Government resistance remained strong. Progress stalled repeatedly. Friends advised him to stop. Investors became nervous. Many people believed the fight was hopeless. But Strive remained determined. He believed the law existed to protect fairness, even when powerful institutions resisted change. For 5 years he refused to back down. 5 years of hearings. 5 years of uncertainty. 5 years of waiting for justice. And finally, the moment came. After years of legal struggle, the case finally reached a decisive moment. Zimbabwe's Supreme Court reviewed the arguments presented by Strive Masiyiwa and the government authorities defending the monopoly. The ruling would determine the future of telecommunications in the country. When the judgment was delivered, it sent shockwaves through the business community. The court declared that the government monopoly on telecommunications was unconstitutional. Private companies could legally operate in the sector. It was a historic victory. Not just for Strive, but for innovation, competition, and entrepreneurship across the nation. But winning the legal battle was only the beginning. Now came the harder challenge. Turning an idea into a functioning company. With the legal barrier removed, Strive finally launched Econet Wireless. But the road ahead remained uncertain. There was little infrastructure. Funding was limited. And skeptics were everywhere. Many doubted whether Zimbabwe could support a modern mobile network. But Strive believed something powerful. If people had access to communication, they would use it. Now it was time to prove that belief right. Launching Econet Wireless was not easy. When Strive Masiyiwa began building the network, the country lacked much of the infrastructure needed for a large-scale telecommunications system. Mobile towers had to be constructed. Equipment had to be imported. Engineers had to be trained. And investors still needed convincing that the idea would succeed. But Strive focused on the long-term vision. He believed millions of people who lacked access to communication would quickly adopt mobile technology if given the opportunity. Slowly, the first towers were installed. Signals began reaching cities. Then towns. Then rural areas. The first calls made through the network represented more than simple conversations. They represented a technological breakthrough for the country. Families separated by distance could now communicate instantly. Businesses could coordinate operations faster. Information could move in ways it never had before. What began as a controversial idea was now becoming a powerful national infrastructure. And the growth had only just begun. As the network expanded, something remarkable began to happen. Demand for mobile communication exploded. People who had waited years for traditional phone lines could now purchase mobile devices and connect instantly through Econet Wireless. Entrepreneurs used phones to manage businesses. Farmers used them to negotiate prices with buyers. Families stayed connected across cities and villages. Communication was no longer a luxury reserved for a few. It was becoming a tool of empowerment. And at the center of this transformation was Strive Masiyiwa. His vision had proven correct. The demand had always existed. People simply needed access. As subscriber numbers grew, the company expanded rapidly. New towers. New services. New partnerships. Zimbabwe was experiencing a telecommunications revolution. And the entrepreneur who once fought 5 years in court was now leading one of Africa's most promising technology companies. Success inside Zimbabwe was only the beginning for Strive Masiyiwa. He believed Africa as a whole was ready for a communication revolution. Many countries across the continent faced the same challenge: limited infrastructure and restricted access to telecommunications. Strive saw the opportunity clearly. If mobile technology could transform Zimbabwe, it could transform Africa. So Econet Wireless began expanding into other markets. New partnerships were formed. New networks were developed. Gradually the company's presence spread beyond its original borders. Millions of people across different countries began using services connected to the expanding network. What started as a single entrepreneur's idea had evolved into a multinational telecommunications enterprise. As his success grew, Strive Masiyiwa expanded his interests beyond telecommunications. He invested in digital services, financial technology, and energy projects. His goal was not simply to run a telecom company. He wanted to participate in building the infrastructure of Africa's digital future. Connectivity, finance, and innovation were increasingly intertwined. And Strive believed the continent's growth would depend on strengthening those systems. Through strategic investments and partnerships, his influence across industries continued to grow. Despite his growing wealth, Strive Masiyiwa remained deeply committed to social impact. He believed success carried responsibility. Through various philanthropic initiatives, he supported education programs, scholarships, and humanitarian projects. Thousands of African students gained opportunities for higher education through his support. For many, these opportunities changed the trajectory of their lives. Strive often emphasized that wealth should be used to create opportunity for others. His philosophy was simple. Success that benefits only one person is small. Success that multiplies opportunity is meaningful. Over time, Strive Masiyiwa became recognized globally as one of Africa's most influential business leaders. He served on international boards, advised global organizations, and contributed to discussions about economic development across the continent. Leaders around the world respected not just his business achievements, but also his integrity and vision. His story had become a powerful example of African entrepreneurship on the global stage. If Strive's journey teaches one lesson, it is the power of persistence. Many entrepreneurs encounter rejection. Many innovative ideas face resistance. But the difference between failure and transformation often lies in perseverance. When Strive spent 5 years fighting for the right to launch his company, the outcome was uncertain. But he believed the principle was worth defending. And that belief ultimately reshaped an entire industry. Today, Strive Masiyiwa stands as one of Africa's most inspiring entrepreneurs. His story proves that innovation does not belong only to Silicon Valley. It can rise from anywhere. Even from a nation where the system says it cannot be done. The boy who once dreamed about connecting people, ended up connecting millions. And that is the power of vision combined with courage. His story proves that innovation does not require perfect conditions. It requires vision, courage, and the determination to continue even when systems resist change. The young engineer who once dreamed about connecting people eventually connected millions. And that legacy will continue to inspire future generations of entrepreneurs across Africa. The story of Strive Masiyiwa is not just a story about business. It is a story about courage, persistence, and vision. When the system told him no, he didn't walk away. He asked a different question. What if the system itself needs to change? For 5 years he fought a legal battle that many believed was impossible to win. Not because he was the most powerful man in the room, but because he believed in the power of an idea. And that idea eventually became Econet Wireless, a company that would go on to connect millions of people across Africa. But hidden inside this journey are powerful lessons. Lesson 1. Opportunities often appear disguised as problems. When others saw a broken telecommunications system, Strive saw a chance to build something better. Lesson 2. Rejection is not always the end of a dream. Sometimes it is simply the beginning of a longer road. Lesson 3. Real entrepreneurs solve problems that affect millions of people. Strive didn't build Econet just to make money. He built it to connect a nation. Lesson 4. Persistence can outlast resistance. Systems may block innovation for a while, but determination has the power to change history. Lesson 5. True success is measured by impact. Beyond building companies, Strive Masiyiwa invested in education, mentorship, and opportunities for thousands of young Africans. His success did not stop with him. It multiplied through others. And perhaps the most important lesson of all is this. The difference between a dream and a legacy is the courage to keep going when everything says stop. If this story inspired you, remember that many of the world's greatest ideas began exactly the same way, with someone who refused to give up. Subscribe to Billionaire Backstories for more powerful journeys of visionaries who changed the world. Because the next story might just change the way you see your own future.